When you're working in InDesign, it helps at the start if you can set up the document correctly, if you know the margins that you want to have, and also how many potential master pages you're going to need. It's going to help you set up the document correctly. What we're going to look at in this video is how to actually set up a document, select your margins and columns, set up guides, and then create a series of master pages that will give you flexibility once you start to apply the design. When I'm creating a new document from scratch, I'm going to come up to File and New and select New Document. Now I've created other documents before, so I've got a series of them in my recents. But what I'll do is I'll go to Print and we'll make a start from there. There are a whole bunch of kind of preset layouts and things like that. I never really deal with those. I'm just going to select A4. And I'm going to put a nominal number of pages in. I might just put 8 in just to start, even though the document I'm going to use will have more. But because I'm going to set up a document and use different master pages, then there's no point putting loads of pages in, because all I'll need to do then is replace them with my new masters. So I'm just going to set a small number of pages in, enough to set it up and see that it's working as a print document. And then I can build it from there. What I'm going to do next then is I do want facing pages on, and I'm going to select 12 columns. And the reason I'm going to pick 12 columns is 12 is divisible by 12, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And that gives me quite a lot of options then when it comes to my layout, that I can do multiple columns of text and images running across, say 3 columns of text on my 12 column grid, which then gives me 9 spare columns. And so that actually then is, running across, a certain percentage, and I'm not just making up the widths. If I have 4 columns of text and then 8 columns empty that I can use for images, that's the rule of thirds. So I'm actually, using set things that we know work well in the world of design and layout. So I'm going to go 12 columns here. I'm going to change the gutter to 4. You can have 4 or 5, depends on what your preference is. The 4.233 is just because it's an American program, and because I'm working in millimeters, it just converts I think it's about 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, whatever it is. Probably an 1/8, because I think this might be a 1/4. So anyway, whatever percentage of an inch that is, I just convert it to 4. Okay, so then with my margins, again, this is a preset, and I think that is 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to play around with these. If I keep the chain connected, then as I change it, it will change all of them. And if I break the chain, then I can actually change one of the settings for the margins. Now, at the moment, I'm kind of guessing what this is going to be like. So if I come down here and click preview, then I can move this out of the way, and then I can see, as I make these changes, what is happening to the document and how those margins are changing. So the margin basically then is the purple line running around the outside, and as I adjust that, then my 12 columns are going to get slightly wider if I reduce the margins, because I've got more effective space that I can use within the page. And if I was to reduce that, then obviously my columns get a little bit narrower. And then I'm going to come down here to bleed, and we'll assume that I have instructions from my printer, who's told me that they want 3mm bleed all the way around. You can see the bleed, the little red line coming in there. Again, if I make it bigger, you can see that that grows. So 3mm usually is a good number. But again, I would speak to my printer if I know who's printing it. If not, I might arbitrarily take a guess, but generally I want to know from the printer, so I would get in touch with them. Slug is a different thing, so this might be an area where I can put some instructions for the printer that they won't print, but it's an area. So if I add some slug, you can see, let me just click the chain, you can see this area of this blue line outside of the bleed. So I could write instructions in there for the printer, and then if I export as a PDF, the instructions will appear in the PDF. And so what happens then is that when I'm exporting, Acrobat knows that it needs to account for the area in the slug. Now, we don't very rarely use that, so you don't really need to include that at all. And then I'm sort of happy with that. I've got my 12 columns. I'm happy with my margins. I've made it slightly larger at the bottom. That can allow for page numbers and a footer. And then after that, I'm okay with what I'm doing. So now I can click save or create, and away we go. So now when I look at this, you can see I've got 8 pages. Again, 8 is a good number because it is divisible by 4, and when you're doing something that is saddle stitched, your page count always needs to be divisible by 4. And so I've got a good start point here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the A parent, and I come up here and I come down to parent options for A parent. Okay, and I'm going to call this pages with no numbers. So what this does then is it gives me a master page that's got no numbers on it. So I can use that for my cover. I can use it in here. Let's say that page 2 and 3 don't have numbers on, but I might want to start adding page numbers from particular page onwards, usually after a contents page. So what I can then do is I can base pages on other pages, or master pages I should say. So I'm going to come in here now and I'm going to go new parent, and this parent I can base it on A pages no numbers, which basically means it'll do everything that I need it to do. And if I add new things in there, then they'll be on my B parent, and I can call this pages with numbers. And then what I can do then is I can add numbers onto this one. So I'll have a master page with no numbers and a master page with numbers. So I'm just going to OK that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this down. So click and drag to make this page working on my B master. So you can see here that there's an A and a B, and that's telling me that each one is a master. Now, in setting up the document, when you're building it in InDesign, what you don't get the option to do is to actually put some horizontal guides on. And I always like to have some horizontal guides in my grid. So I'm going to come up to layout. I'm going to go create guides. And the reason I'm doing it now is so I can demonstrate to you that because I do this on the A master, it will then carry it forward onto the B master. So I'm going to go with 12 rows. I'm going to have a gutter of 4, and I'm going to start it on the margins. And if I click preview, you can see here are the guides. And if I change it to page, then what happens then is it starts at the top of the page and then comes down. That's my first row, and my first row then is outside of my margins. Now in this particular layout, I don't want that. I want where my margins start is where I want that to be my usable area. So I'm going to start my guides at the margins, and you can see now that I've got 12 rows running across the page. Now if I OK that, and then I come down to my B master, you can see that the the guides are already on there. So whatever I do onto the A master will appear on the B master, and then subsequently all the pages from that. So just to demonstrate maybe a little bit more vividly, if I just draw a black rectangle and I've put it onto the A master, you can see now that it appears on all of the left-hand pages of the whole book, because the B master pages are based on the A master page. So again, if I move that across, you'll see then they appear. If I have it in the middle, you see it appears in the middle. So if I then come down to my B master and I just copy and paste that in, you can see now that it's only appearing on the pages that are B masters. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some page numbers in here. So I'm just going to jump in, come down here nice and small, and I'm just going to write the letter A. I am going to choose a typeface other than Minion Pro. So we're going to Helvetica, we'll make it about 7 point. I'm going to left align this one here, and I'm just going to pull this down. One of my little tricks is where I know I want the page number, I'll take the text box down to the bottom. So then I know that when I copy it across to the other side, that it will then, I can measure it, I know it'll be on the same level. I don't need to draw a guide, which might get in the way later. So then if I come up to type, I'm going to scroll down to insert special character, markers, and then current page number. And you can see now it's changed to B. And the reason it does that is because it's on the B master. And when I do my C master in a second, you'll then see that it'll change to C. So I'm now just going to press Option and Shift, whiz that all the way across, and then zoom in again down here. Again, you can line that up, because even though I don't have a guide, I can actually see up here that when I'm moving something left and right, if you look very carefully in the rulers, you can see the width of my text box. So that will actually appear up here, so I can line it up there without needing to draw a guide. And then I'm just going to switch this now to the right aligned, and then whenever I've got my page numbers, they'll count in from the margin. So if I got to page 128, it's not going to hang over the edge here, it's going to move to the left. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new parent, and this is C, and I shall call this pages with footer. Okay, and then I'm going to base it on the B master, which means it'll have a page number, and then I can put the footer in, and then I can have options then when it comes to my pages. So just okay that, and then if I zoom in down here, you can see that the page number has changed to C. That's because I'm on the C master page, or parent page as they call them now. So what I can then do is, I'm just going to jump around a little bit. So if I come into the B master and just copy that page number, and the only reason I'm doing that is because I want the position of it. So if I copy and paste it in, and then I do the same thing, I'm just whizzing it over to the right hand side, and then I'm just going to drag the text box out, and I'm going to call it TKK04 document, and then I can do the same thing, press Option and Shift, and copy that across here, and then left align it. So you can see now that I've got footers on some pages. So I can then drag this down to here. So then when I look at my pages, I've got the first spread has got no page numbers. The second spread has got page numbers, and the third spread has got a footer as well. And the reason I do things like that is that if I then hit the W key, so the W key is a good key to hide all of the guides and margins and columns, so it gets rid of anything that's superfluous, and you can then see what your design is going to look like without all the construction there. One of the reasons that I do things like this is that if I am running an image, let's just say I've got this image, I'm just going to make it a color rather than drop an image in, so I'm just going to make a magenta box, and you can see what happens here is that when I put it in, it actually goes over the top of the number. And so this is can be an issue with your master pages, is that any elements you put on there, if you put an element onto your page, it goes over the top of your numbers. So what I need to do is, I'm just going to delete this, and I'm going to, probably the quickest way is to go new layer, call that layer 1. It won't let me do that, so I need to actually change this to, I should call that master elements with the plural, and I'll make that one red and okay that, and then I'm going to go new layer. I'm going to call that layer 1, or I can call that graphics even, let's call it graphics. And then the only downside with that is that it remembers the name of the layers if you copy and paste things. So if I call this graphics and then bring elements in from another document, it will remember that they're on a layer called layer 1. So you do need to be quite sort of diligent if you're doing things like that. I've now just grabbed the graphics layer and brought that down. So all of my elements that I've already created, so the page numbers and the footer, are all on this layer called master elements. So if I come back into my master pages and I click on this one, you can see now that it's got a red outline. That's because of the layer that it's on. So now if I jump in down here and I draw that rectangle again and I make it orange, now if I'm on the same layer, then it's going to be in front of it. So I can click here, drag this down, and then what I should do then is lock that layer off. So that layer with all of those master elements is not going to be touched, and then all of my design elements that I put in there will be behind things like the numbers. And the reason that I've done some with page numbers and some with footers, if you imagine I had an image that was running all the way across the page, and if I just kind of zoom into here, and let's say that this is an image that's running across the whole page, I might not want to have the footer in there, kind of in the way of the image that's there, but I might want the page number. So if that was the case on this page, then I can just click and drag that down. So I've got a page number but no footer. And if I wanted it without any of that, then what I can do is I can just do it with a one of my master pages that's got no numbers, and then I can have it clean. So if you're doing a longish document and you think you might need to manage what's going on in the bottom of the pages with having page numbers, or even if you've got section headers up at the top, again, then you can create a document that's got section headers and things like that. So I could then go, well, it's got the footer and a header. I can then go in and make a new parent. It will be parent D. I shall call it section 1, let's call it, and we'll base it on pages with the footers. So then I've got, this is my new master, and let's say I've got section, let's call it safety. We don't know what the section might be called. And again, I'm just going to pick a typeface. Let me scroll quickly through there and select Helvetica, and let's go Roman. I'll do the things that I usually do with my type, and let's say then we have a line that goes all the way across the page, because it is a section, so we might have something like that in there. And then I'm just going to align the text at the bottom of the text box, just so I can play around with, I know then my alignments are going to be consistent, and then I can, let's say, move that up a little bit. So we've got this, running across the top. I can make the line a little bit thinner, and also knock down the color a little bit. It's a bit harsher. And then do the same. Make that 80%. So you can see now that I've got a section and I didn't name it. So if I don't name things, then you can come into parent options, and then I can edit it. And I can call it section, or even call it safety. Special offer this week was spelling things correctly, and then we could call it that. Okay, so now I've got my safety section, and if the next section was whatever that next section is, again, you can then base it on the footer and then copy and paste from there. So if I just copy these, because I'm still in this area, I can, let's just drag these down onto here. So if I come down to this page, again, see, I put these on the layer which was called graphics. So again, it's this kind of, you need to be aware of what you're doing and manage the things as you go. So really I should be placing that up here onto that layer. So if I do have any imagery that goes across everything, I can come back to here now and put that in there. You can see that now, hit the W key again, that runs across the image. Now I might want to have this with white text, in which case then I can duplicate or do another version of safety section and have safety section white header. It can get a bit ridiculous. I suggest if it's going like that, that you might then just copy and paste them in. Depends on how often you're working on this document. If it's a one-off, if it's a document that you need to come back to regularly and you're constantly adding new sections, then it's probably good to have multiple master pages. But sometimes it can get a bit ridiculous. You've got as many master pages as you have pages almost, and so I would say that's going a little bit beyond what you need to do. But something like this is a good way to then set it all up. And then if I was to start to build my document, I'm just going to place some text in just to show the benefits of using a 12-column grid. So I'll go as far as just filling with placeholder text. And again, I shall get rid of minion. Let's just scroll quickly up to the top. Make it 9. Optical, maybe add a little bit of lead in there. Maybe make it Roman, for instance, and add a little bit of paragraph spacing in there. And then again, just finish off the placeholder. I'll do that one more time. Okay, now what I can do is I always have this open at the top, which is the control panel, which is this one here. And then what I can do is I can start to select my column widths, and you can see here by repeating the spacing for the gutter, and that's why I always make it a whole number, and I do go to the trouble of changing the preset one just so then it's easier to remember. And then when you look at your text now, you can see that this is covering 2/3 and this is 1/3 of the document. So, quite quickly then I can start to build the information. So that's how I would go about setting up my document. We will cover how to then get into typesetting and paragraph styles, but as far as actually just creating your document, using layers and using master pages to actually get started, and then as my document starts to continue, I can then come in, I can select this page, I can go insert pages, and I can add, let's say, 8 based on pages with a footer. They're going after page 7, and again now I just can start to build my document as I go. So I don't have to know straight away how many pages I'm having. It's just as easy to actually go and add pages, because if I want to change the parent on this one, I've got to manually drag it down and save and copy over it. So sometimes it's better if you've got lots of certain sections to add, you can go add as a block of pages. If I know I've got to add 8, that's much quicker to go insert pages and add 8 of them than it is to copy and replace 8 already predetermined master pages. So that's how I set up my InDesign documents. Hopefully you found that useful. There are lots of different ways to do it, so mine isn't gospel, that's just the way that works for me. Hopefully you'll find some of it useful and you can apply that into your own design practice.